All right, gang, we are live from the Plank-Eyed Saint studio in Hannibal, Missouri, high above the sidewalk on Main Street. Thank you for listening in. Hey, today we've got a guest with us. This is a new buddy of mine, and we're doing a series of these interviews with people from here in Hannibal. Some of them are businessmen, politicians, and leaders. And today I've got Corey Allen with me from Compassion Church. Corey, thanks for taking some time out to hang with me, man.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah.
It's awesome.
Yeah, I look forward to it.
So tell me about being in Hannibal. How long you been here?
Well, I was born in a little town called Santa Fe, Missouri, close to here.
Okay.
But I couldn't wait to get out, so I joined the Navy and went away and got married. But I moved back to Hannibal. My wife and I moved back to Hannibal about 18 years ago.
Holy cow. So
Yeah.
this is home.
This is home, yeah. This is where we're supposed to be, I think.
So Compassion Church is your church that you're the pastor of right now.
Yeah.
Tell me about where Compassion's located. Tell me about things like the services.
Yeah, Compassion's located behind Farm and Home off of Munger Lane, and the address is 500 Munger Lane.
Gotcha.
And it's located right there behind Farm and Home, and we have two services, 9 and 10:30 on Sunday mornings. And
So 10:30 for all you guys that like to sleep in a little bit. You can catch that one.
Yeah.
All right. So the other thing about it, do you have an online service?
We have online on a YouTube channel and Facebook. So
They
you
can find there, Compassion Church.
You just Google Compassion Church and it'll pop up. So
you said born and raised in Santa Fe.
yeah,
Is that you got a wife and kids, I guess?
I got a wife and 2 kids and a bonus young lady who's living with us. So yeah.
Now, where did you guys meet?
Man, we met on a military base in Millington, Tennessee. I was a sailor. My wife hated sailors, so it worked out perfectly. And we just met, and I always like to say is we met, and she fell head over heels in love with me, but it was the opposite. And I chased her and bugged her until she said yes. And
Wow.
yeah.
Awesome. Been
Yeah,
married
we
how
did.
long?
Been married 34 years.
Holy cow, man. That's good.
34 years, yeah. We got married in 1991.
Mm.
Yeah.
So I always try to personalize things a little bit for people that maybe say, oh, that's just a guy, he's a pastor at church, but I want people to know a little bit more about you. And that's kind of why I ask that stuff. So one of the things I always ask people wherever I'm at is, what's your favorite food? What do you really like? What's your go-to?
Man, steak.
Steak?
Yeah, I'm a meat eater. I like steak and potatoes. And right now we're on this health journey, so I don't get a lot of red meat and steak, but I dream about it quite a bit. But that's that and that pie that I got last week, that chocolate pie was
pretty good stuff.
either,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, I like a good ribeye. I have to literally look away when I drive by Texas Roadhouse.
Oh my goodness.
My vehicle just pulls in if I don't.
You ever had the one with the bone in?
Oh man, what do they call that? The tomahawk?
Tomahawk.
That thing's
Man.
amazing. Yeah.
Man. Yeah, that's real healthy for me.
So how about favorite movie? This is a great question.
Oh my goodness, this is a horrible answer for a pastor. But anything with airplane or slapstick comedy, and anything where I don't have to think. If it's just a dumb comedy that makes no sense, I'm watching
You're
it.
all in.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm all in. Probably just anything like that.
Yeah. I got I'd say on my list was always A River Runs Through It. It's a Brad Pitt movie. I like it, and I like Legends of the Fall. Both of those are Brad Pitt.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's a man crush thing or what.
Maybe,
but
yeah.
Those two movies, I really like both.
You do
of them.
kind of look like it.
You really need glasses. So how about a favorite band or favorite song?
Wow. I like 80s music.
Do you?
Yeah, so I'm not going to go churchy on y'all. I'm just going to be real. But
Heck yeah.
My go-to, I actually like country music. I'd say Morgan Wallen, probably, country music. This actually kid I know wrote a song that used to be in my youth group, Jared Kime.
Okay.
Pretty Little Poison. It's a new song out
Yep.
there on the list. But yeah, 80s music, anything Duran Duran.
Oh yeah.
Remember those?
Yeah, I remember when MTV started, and it was just like you couldn't look away because
Oh,
it was
my
just all
goodness.
these cool videos over and over. And
Yeah.
I think I read some trivia thing that said the first one was video killed the radio star.
It was,
And
yeah.
I believe it, man. It's like once
Yeah.
I started watching that, I didn't listen to the radio as much.
That's true.
But
That's
I
true.
was a long-haired hippie freak, completely in a cloud of dope smoke, and putting MTV on, I would just sit there for hours, and I can't get that time back.
Yeah, man, you're right. Yeah.
So my first time that I told people that I wanted to be a pastor, well, the first question they asked me was why. So I guess that's one of the things that I would ask you is why. What made you say I want to be a pastor?
I don't really think that I wanted to be a pastor, but I started out in youth ministry.
Okay.
And I thought that's all I'd ever do.
Yeah.
And I never, I think just seeing the kids and seeing how God would impact their lives, and I think I grew up desiring something real, and just being a youth pastor and doing that. It wasn't until we were on a mission trip in El Salvador. We had this traveling worship drama team, and we traveled everywhere, and we would do these worships and dramas, and it's a crazy conversation that just never thought would happen. And one lady, you know how that happens. One lady said, "Hey, I heard about this plumbing store in New London that's coming available." And my wife goes, "Well, we should start a church there." It's not like we had this angelic visit. I'm like, "Sure, let's do it." That's how I became a pastor.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just, I just think I've always been the type of guy that just, hey, whatever, I'll try anything, And some people say they're called to be a pastor. I feel like I just kind of, it just happened.
It just happened.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
So one of the things that this group of pastors are sitting around in an office, and I'm all excited thinking, I'm going to tell them, hey, this is awesome. I'm getting ready to start my theology classes, and I want to be a pastor. And they all have these long faces. There's nobody excited in the room. And the one pastor, he says, "Is there anything else you do really well? Like sell cars, hang drywall, anything?" And I said, "Well, I do some things pretty good." He said, "Whatever it is that you can do and find the same excitement, you should go do that." I mean, he literally tried to talk me out of it. And I said, "Why?" And he said this sentence to me. He said, you will encounter your highest highs and your lowest lows as a pastor. And he was dead serious about it. And I guess my question to you, do you identify with that statement, do you think?
I do. I mean, if I was in the room with that guy, the first thing I'd tell him is probably because you've never pastored a church Jesus would go to. I mean, it's probably, I'm just going to be real with you.
I love that.
And if I'm ever talking to a young man or a young woman that wants to go into the ministry and be a pastor, and if you don't want to do it with Jesus, don't do it.
Right. Oh, yeah.
If you're not
100%.
going to pastor a church that Jesus would go to and attend, don't do it.
Yeah.
Because oh my goodness, I just told you Mondays, for whatever reason, it seems like Sunday morning, the more people we have on a Sunday morning service, I keep saying, if we get to 100, if we get to 200, if we get to 400. And I talked to a pastor named Mike Burnett, and his church was the fastest growing church in I think the United States for a while, right after COVID. And he said, you'll never be satisfied with a number.
Yeah.
But he said, but you can enjoy the ride. And so, to answer your question, I mean, I do feel the highs, I feel the lows, and I don't like to get too excited about either.
Yeah.
I don't get too excited in the highs. I do celebrate the wins.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody gets saved in our church, you hear them shout. You've been there,
Yep.
Somebody gets baptized, it's like an earthquake. So, but here's the deal: we understand that the lows are low and the highs are highs. And I think sometimes if we spend too much time in the valley looking up at the mountaintops, we don't learn what God wanted us to learn in that valley. And if we spend too much time looking down on the highs, we don't get to enjoy the victories.
Yeah.
So how do you manage that? It's a hard thing to manage.
Oh yeah.
But you need people around you. You can't do it alone.
Yeah. You couldn't do it alone.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I've been hearing a lot of from people, they said that Hannibal has 55 churches, give or take a few, and I think we have 18,000 plus people. Does that sound right? 19,000.
Yeah.
And I was trying to figure out, how do we get all of those churches, all of them, all of us, to do kingdom work?
Wow.
You got any thoughts on that? Like, how do we do that?
I don't think we can. I think God can.
Yeah.
I think it starts in the heart of the pastor. And sometimes it's not even the pastor's heart to not do kingdom work. they may be trapped in with a board or a church member. And I'm just speaking, I don't know for sure.
Sure.
It's difficult because what is it I heard for early on in ministry? You got to get rid of that my ministry demon. If I could say that scary word, demon.
No, I get it.
But there's a spirit, a my ministry spirit that makes us think we're doing this, and there are children, and there are fruit, and they don't belong to us.
Yeah.
So if somebody, so that's a really hard question, Bob, and I think it's one at a time, one relationship at a time. Matter of fact, I had a pastor. I don't know if I can share this or not, but I had a pastor at a prayer meeting, and never met the guy that I know of, and I walked up to introduce myself, and he refused to shake my hand.
Wow.
And I thought to myself, what has he heard about me, or what kind of opinions does he have of me that caused that? So I think that's what's happening. I think we get in our feelings. I don't know. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, just that's one of those lows
for sure. I remember being out in Oklahoma, and it was right after they'd had a really bad tornado, a lot of debris, and it was one of those where everything's tore up, but this church, I mean, it literally had a couple shingles off. Otherwise, you'd never know a tornado hit. And you go a block away, and there's kids that died in a school. These houses are all tore down. There's fires burning. It's terrible. And the pastor says, well, I think I'm going to let you guys set up here in the parking lot, and we'll start helping the community. So as we go in 2 or 3 days, all of a sudden he comes out and he's crying, and I have no idea what's going on. And I said, what are you crying about? And he said, we got to shut this down. And I said, well, what's happening? And he said, my board doesn't want us to help anybody but those that go to this church. And he says, I don't know why my church was even saved in this disaster. And I said, my friend, you can see the reason your church is saved is you have a chance to be a lighthouse to all this disaster, and people are going to see the hands and feet of Jesus live and working. And he said, man, I'd love to go out there with you. I said, let's go. I got a spot in the truck. Come with me. He said, I can't. I said, what's holding you back? He said, they write my paycheck.
Wow.
I was heartbroken. Not, it's like missing the idea that, we're called to do whatever it is that God gives us a talent to do. And sometimes it's the church, being the light in the community. And kingdom work to me means that we all represent the same God. We read the same Bible. Yeah. So why those divisions exist, I don't understand.
That pastor was probably be one in a room telling a young pastor, you don't want to do this.
Yeah.
Because he's never experienced, that type of joy that comes from reversing some tattoos. How about that? Stuff like that.
Yep, that was crazy
That's
stuff.
The God thing.
Yeah, we took a little bit of heat for doing tattoo night.
I think Jesus said something about us getting persecuted. I don't think he guaranteed us to. I think if you're not getting persecuted as a pastor, then you got to question whether you are doing kingdom work.
Yeah.
If nobody's talking about you, then what are you doing? You got to shake some trees.
Yeah, I had a note in here that to myself, really, but it was to you, that I want you to succeed. And I don't work with Corey. I'm not hired by his church. I'm not paid to say any of this, but I want him to succeed because he's a church that represents Jesus. And I think that the mindset of any pastor has to be, how can we all be the Acts 2 community? I don't think we were ever intended to just be in those 4 walls and say, come here for an hour or 2 on Sunday and then we'll see you next Sunday. I know that God made us for way more than that.
I agree, 100%. And we know from the Bible that Jesus only really performed 3 miracles inside the church walls.
Yeah.
And the miracles should be happening on the streets. People should follow us to church like they did disciples. Yeah. After we heal them. Yeah. You take a healed person to church, they're not going to let that person whose Bible's sitting in the pew mess with them. Yeah. So I'm with you, man. It really does break my heart that more people, and disclosure, I haven't always been this way. Right. Really took some breaking. Took some breaking and me putting some old religious mentalities to death and allowing God to change my heart and my mind. And it really took a lot of trips to the threshing floor to get
Yeah.
to this, to say, hey, I don't care who's responsible. I don't even care if I'm just one of the ushers. I want to see Jesus move in the city, and Hannibal.
Oh yeah.
Because Jesus wasn't concerned about, he was concerned about if the disciples would go into a city, they weren't there just to win a certain group of people,
Right.
or a sect or a religious group, or they weren't there for the assemblies or the Baptists. They were there for the city.
Yeah.
And that's what we should be here for. All the churches.
I think we were open as a church. Oh, this was over in Indiana. I was probably only open maybe 5 or 6 months. And all of a sudden we had somebody had donated some money. And I said, well, let's tithe some of it back out to a church that's never met us. One that none of us have ever been to. And they said, okay, what do you want to do? And I said, just write the check, send it to them. A couple days later, I get this call from the pastor and his wife. And they said, well, we got a check here. What's this for? And I said, we just want to encourage you to do kingdom work, God's kingdom. And we just want to send you some money to encourage you and keep doing. And they said, well, why would you send it to us? And I was just, they were baffled. They'd never heard of another church helping another church. But I think somehow we've created these churches to be us against them.
Yeah.
And we're missing out that Hannibal has so much need. There's a lot of brokenness and struggling and addiction. And it's not the four walls. It's going to come from all of us being willing to be hands and feet.
Amen.
I don't know how that's all going to fold. So this total change in path here. Tell me about your dreams. What would you, if you could say, I'm going to dream this for Hannibal and for your church and what's going on, what would you like to see happen, man?
I just had this conversation this morning. I think, honestly, I wouldn't think I'm a big thinker because we can't outthink God. I think we sometimes unthink God.
Yeah.
If that's a way to put it.
Yeah.
I mean, we think too small.
Yeah.
I want to have a vision so big that God has to get the credit for it.
Yeah.
So we recently were fundraising to fund our Hope Center. Our Hope Center is a 30-bed facility for guys that are coming out of addiction.
Okay.
And I was talking to a guy this morning, and he said, well, once we get this done, I said, wait a minute. We're not done with anything. I said, this is just the beginning.
Just start.
I want to have multiple compassion churches, multiple Hope Centers. I said, I would love to see multiple compassion churches with a men and women's center all around this area. Not just not because when I say compassion churches, I meant with the Matthew 8:36 mentality.
Yeah.
Because Jesus looked out on the crowd, he had compassion on them.
Yeah, he did.
Because they didn't have a shepherd.
Mm-mm.
They didn't have nobody to lead them. Most of these people in this town don't have anybody leading them towards Jesus. So that's the vision. It's to continue to grow outside of our church. If I got to send 50 people out of my church to plant a church that's going to have compassion in an area, that's what our vision is.
That's awesome.
It's not about building our location. Our location is going to be I believe, a huge place of launching for other ministries and other churches, and hopefully they can all keep the same culture, the Jesus culture.
That's right. Yeah.
To be cliche.
Yeah, I had written some things in my notes, and it's so interesting, just what you're saying about the Hope House and being able to help these people that are need a place to land and need to belong and need to be mentored and to know that God is real is a big deal. And I had written down this scripture. It's out of John 11:35. In trivia questions, you always win. This is the shortest verse in the Bible. Jesus wept. Yeah. It's like, I love that because I could remember that. My brain that got burned up in high school. So
same way.
I love these little short verses. But for those of you that might be listening in parts of the world where you don't have a Bible in front of you, the story that I'm setting there with that verse that says Jesus wept, we know that Jesus got notified that his buddy Lazarus was sick. And so this is, Lazarus is sick in another town, and they send word to Jesus, hey, your buddy Lazarus is not doing well, and we need you to come right away. And instead, Jesus says, well, we'll hang out for a couple of days. And everyone, even his disciples, are looking at him going, wait, what? You do hear me say that he's really sick, maybe not going to make it. And then when they finally decide to show up, Jesus rolls into town, and Lazarus has died. And the sister of Lazarus is scolding him and said, dude, if you just showed up when we sent word, Lazarus might not be dead because, you have the power. And she's literally scolding Jesus for not showing up when she wanted him. Yeah. And in the process of it, Jesus says, roll back the stone. Let's see this situation. And he says, go in there and take all those burial wraps off. This man's not dead. And lo and behold, Lazarus is raised from the dead to stand there and communicate with them and for them to witness that Jesus said, I wanted him to be good and dead, stinky dead. Yeah. And if you go look in like old, the King James version of that, it says, Master, he stinketh. Mm-hmm. They're trying everything to talk. Don't roll the stone back. It's going to be really stinky. And he says, good, that's where I do my best stuff, where there's no possibility. But the idea that Jesus wept, and this is what I'm coming to you with, I've heard people preach on all kinds of reasons about Jesus wept because he felt bad for them, and Jesus wept because of this or that. But it seems to me that Jesus wept because us as a society, as humans, we never recognized who he was.
Man. Well, he did one other time. Yeah, I agree 100% with you, Bob. And I when I get to that moment, it really makes me sad because the emotions going through Jesus, I'm getting ready to lay down my life for you. And he also, right after the triumphal entry.
Yep.
It says same thing. He wept because, he realized that there were going to be certain people. And I think he knew not only were there going to be certain people who did never believe in him, but there were going to be certain people in his name lead people astray.
Yes.
And when we are followers of Christ and ministers and proclaiming to be a church, it's a huge responsibility.
You bet. It is huge.
Because, I mean, and I think he weeps over the lost, that one that walked in the door and got treated wrong and got you got a tattoo, you can't come to this church, or you smell funny, or I'm afraid my kids are going to be uncomfortable, and I don't know, but that's my heart, I think that's Jesus wept because of that.
So do you feel that way as a pastor sometimes? Does it make you feel like, I don't know what you described, I always called mine an urgency, like I literally felt like I was digging in the backyard and I dug up the cure for cancer and I just want to run down the streets and go, I have the answer. It makes me want to cry sometimes.
Man. And sometimes you get so excited, and then when that person's like, like, it's like, wait a minute though, but you don't understand. And I do. I feel that. I call it divine discontentment. I'm just not, I don't think while I'm on this earth, and I'm not saying this, I'm a very joyful person. I love life. But I don't think I'll ever be content with where I'm at in the kingdom because he said, go to all the ends of the earth, and so here we are. We're in Hannibal, of all places. This is where our earth is. And but it doesn't end here.
That was one of the very first books I read, trying to become a pastor and trying to learn the whole.
Oh my goodness!
It was called Holy Discontent by Bill Hybel.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if you ever read that. But
I haven't.
I'm reading it. His dad takes him to like this little bitty country traditional church, and on the way home, the dad's really happy. I took my kid to this church, and he gets it, and you ask him about it, and he says, Dad, I'll never have a church like that. And the dad was just crushed. But Bill Hybel said, you know what, we got to go to where people are at to meet them. I think there's something about that message of, well, if you get your act together and you get cleaned up enough, then you can come to hang out at church. And it's the other way around. It's like, I think we need to go out there where they're at to engage them. And I don't know, it's something that pastors feel. I know I'm not the only one like that.
Yeah, and we're not the only one. There's some good. That's what I love about him. There are some great pastors here in this town who have the same heart. Yeah, and
we'd be dangerous if we all get together.
Oh my goodness, we probably wouldn't get anything. There definitely wouldn't be anybody else talking in that room. But you put some pastors together with them like now.
Yeah. So tell me, do you have plans or missions on horizon? Anything you guys are working on right now?
Yeah, we're working on. We have missions to Trinidad. I think our connections director is there right now. Really? She's in Trinidad right now doing Give a Kid a Chance, and they give all these books away, do Sunday school. Nice. And I can't speak to what she does, but I know she's a wonderful person, and she does great things. We have a local mission called Mission 180.
Okay, tell me about that.
Man, so right after COVID, we start this thing called Mission 180, and we're like, we're going to start this Mission 180. We're going to go. We're going to feed the homeless. We're going to provide clothing. We're going to do all these things. Well, right after COVID, you really couldn't get out much. So Stephanie, who's over Mission 180, she went around and started meeting with all the local nonprofits and saying, "Hey, we are the hands and feet of Jesus." I love how you put that in your book too. So, but we're the hands and feet of Jesus, and we just want to know how we can help this community. Well, and this nonprofit said, "Well, you don't have to do this because we'll provide this." We found out a lot of the things that we were going to do were available.
Yeah.
Clothing, food, electric bills, things like that. As a pastor, you get that call on Monday morning. They're like, "Hey, pastor, can you help me with my electric bill?"
Yeah.
Well, I'd love to, but and so what Stephanie does is she finds what's already available, and then we provide the gap.
Yeah.
If there's anything missing in the city, that's where we come in.
That's awesome.
And man, she's grown that into and a lot of people don't know it's a compassion ministry, and I'm cool with that. It doesn't matter to me. I actually prefer it. Now that I said it on a podcast, everybody
it's over,
knows,
man.
Right? It's
yeah, your phone's gonna ring off the
hook.
hook.
That's fine. I'll give you Stephanie's number right now. But
Sorry, Stephanie.
I wouldn't do that. But the truth is, a lot of people will take help from a mission that they wouldn't from a church.
Yeah.
And if we and here's what that religious person say. Well, how are they going to hear about Jesus? Well, they don't have to hear about him. We don't just have to be his mouth.
Yeah.
We can be his hands, his feet.
That's
We
right.
can be, so they can see Jesus in us. And once they ask that question, why do y'all do this? Then we tell them.
Yeah, I think
that's
a really
one of
good way.
one of the things that we're really, really excited about. And we have an El Salvador mission, some local missions going on. Man, we have a group in our church that just feed the homeless every Saturday.
Right.
Downtown here, Hannibal. And
I walked down, was it last Saturday night?
Did y'all go
down
down and check it out?
It was so awesome just to see people out there engaging in the streets.
Man.
It was really cool.
Yeah,
I love that.
It's their ministry. It's not something that I said, "Hey, we're going to do this as a church." They felt compelled to do this on their own.
Nice.
And they just started doing it. And they literally just started coming to the church. And literally that's how I met you. I came to one of them.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I love that. So, and you had your youth event not too long ago, Youth on Fire?
Yeah.
And then is that geared towards high school? Or?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have much to do with that. There's this young man named Jeremy in our youth group who came up to me 3 years ago, and he said, "Pastor," he said, I really want to start doing a youth rally.
Right.
And I said, "Well, if you want to do it, do it." I said, "I'm old. I don't know anything about youth ministry." I said, "I have a heart for it." So he's not even our youth pastor. So he just started doing this, and this is, I think, the third or fourth one he's done. And he tries to get other churches involved with very little success.
Yeah.
I mean, but hey, I encouraged him this last time. I said, keep going, keep doing it. And then we also have that refresh that we do, and where our worship leader gets the college together and all these worship teams together, and they just worship, and that's been great. Yeah. That's been phenomenal.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So anything else that you'd like to share with everybody that maybe is tuned in out there somewhere in the world, and you got a message?
Absolutely. Yeah, I just would like to tell you, man, listen, find a church where you can be real and where Jesus is. And at Compassion Church here in Hannibal, there are some good churches, but you can come as you are. You don't have to wear a certain thing. I have people ask me all the time, "Hey, we're going to come to church. What do we need to wear?" Well, we prefer clothing. I mean, that's always good, but I don't care. You wear shorts, you wear a tank top, flip-flops. I mean, it doesn't matter. I mean, you have tattoos. You can listen. I've had people come on drugs. Come as you are. I mean, you're not going to get better until you meet Jesus. So just come meet him and let him lead you to where you need to be.
Awesome.
Be a part of it.
Man, Corey, that's so good. I can't add anything to that, brother. I appreciate that you took time out of your day and just to encourage people. I think you and I, our background, we've had our share of struggles and obstacles and stumbles and falls, but God reminds us over and over He still loves us. He's right there with us. And
what's that old Toby Mac song? If we're gonna go down, we're gonna go down swinging.
Yeah,
we're not
that's it. That's it. That is, man. So, hey, I love you, brother.
Love you, man.
Have a great week.
All right, thanks, man. Thank you.